Africa and the Middle East lies a narrow passage that carries the lifeblood of global trade. Bab el-Mandeb, translated as the Gate of Tears, sounds more like a warning than a location. Here, the Red Sea squeezes into a thin corridor. Every tanker, every cargo ship heading toward the Suez Canal must pass through this point. More than 10% of global trade flows through this narrow strait every day. But unlike the open ocean, there is no room for error here. On one side, war-torn Yemen. On the other, the unstable Horn of Africa. This is not just a passage. This is one of the most fragile points on the planet. And it takes only one disruption for the entire world to feel the consequences. The name Bab el-Mandeb is not accidental. In Arabic, it means Gate of Tears. There are several stories behind this name. One speaks of countless shipwrecks that happened here over centuries. Another tells of separation, of lands and people divided by water. But they all share one thing. This passage has always been dangerous. Strong currents, shifting winds, and narrow channels made it deadly for early ships. Many lost everything here. That is why it became known as a gate you enter with fear. Long before modern shipping, Bab el-Mandeb was already a critical trade route. Caravans brought goods across deserts to its shores. From here, ships carried spices, gold, and silk to distant markets. This was a bridge between Africa, Arabia, and Asia. Whoever controlled this passage controlled trade itself. And with trade came power. Even then, this was more than water between lands. It was a tool of geopolitics. Today, Bab el-Mandeb is more important than ever. It is the gateway to the Red Sea and the route to the Suez Canal. Without it, ships would have to sail around the entire African continent, adding thousands of extra kilometers. Every day, millions of barrels of oil pass through this strait, along with goods that keep global supply chains alive. This is one of the most vital trade and energy routes on Earth. But this importance also makes Bab el-Mandeb vulnerable. It is what experts call a choke point. A narrow place where global trade can be disrupted in an instant. One incident here, and supply chains across the world begin to break. Prices rise, ships wait, markets react almost immediately. A single point with global consequences. For years, this region was known for piracy, especially along the Somali coast. Small, fast boats targeted massive cargo ships, seeking ransom or valuable goods. Although piracy has decreased, the threat has never fully disappeared. Because where money flows, risk follows. In recent years, the danger has taken a different form. The war in Yemen has moved closer to the strait. Drone and missile attacks have become a real threat. Ships are no longer just crossing water, but entering a conflict zone. Every escalation increases the risk and reminds the world how fragile this passage truly is. Because of this, major global powers are present here. The United States, China, and European nations all have strategic interests. Naval forces patrol these waters, protecting one of the most critical routes on the planet. Because whoever secures Bab el-Mandeb influences the global economy. This is no longer just geography. This is global power in motion. But what happens if Bab el-Mandeb is blocked? Ships would be forced to sail around Africa, adding weeks to their journeys. Transport costs would surge, energy prices would rise, and the effects would be felt everywhere, from fuel stations to supermarket shelves. One narrow passage with the power to impact billions of lives. Bab el-Mandeb may look small on a map, but its importance is enormous. Here, geography, economics, and politics collide, shaping the world we live in. Because sometimes, the most important places on Earth are not the largest ones, but the ones the world simply cannot function without. But the story of Bab el-Mandeb is far from over. In recent years, tensions in the Red Sea have started to rise again. Attacks on commercial ships are no longer rare incidents. Some vessels have already been forced to change their routes. Others travel under constant military protection. Insurance costs for shipping companies are increasing, and every new incident adds uncertainty to global trade. What was once a distant risk is becoming a daily reality. If instability continues to grow, Bab el-Mandeb could become one of the most dangerous trade routes on Earth. And if that happens, the global economy will not remain untouched. Because in a connected world, even a single narrow passage can reshape everything.